You were never built for average days or ordinary tasks. There's something in your spirit that makes the atmosphere different when you walk into a room, and lately, everything around you has been preparing for something bigger than most will ever understand. Not all pressure breaks you. Some of it is surgical, not to destroy, but to reconstruct. What looked like chaos was actually a silent recalibration. Not punishment, but programming. While others were waiting for rescue, something inside you rewired itself to become the solution. All those lonely nights, unanswered prayers, and invisible battles weren't empty. They were the sacred hammer strokes crafting something that can't be copied. This was never about learning the rules. It was about outgrowing the entire game. The universe didn't train you in comfort, it trained you in contradiction. You learned to move while standing still, to trust without proof, to rebuild without applause. And now? Now you're becoming the very thing they swore was impossible, a living contradiction to every limitation they tried to place on you. There's a reason it always felt heavier for you. You weren't just carrying your own potential. You were carrying the blueprint of an entirely new reality. Not a personal upgrade, a dimensional shift. And every time you bent without breaking, you planted seeds for timelines that haven't even blossomed yet. What you're stepping into now doesn't require permission. It doesn't fit inside old language. It demands a whole new rhythm. And that's exactly what you've become, a rhythm disruptor. A frequency anomaly. The very presence that bends probability in favor of divine timing. They thought they buried you in confusion, but the soil just helped you root deeper. They thought you were fragile because you felt everything, but that sensitivity was your sonar. You don't just survive storms, you speak the language of the lightning now. So if your reflection looks unfamiliar lately, that's because it's no longer reflecting your past. It's revealing your readiness. You're not just awake, you're active. You're not just prepared, you're positioned. And the shift that's coming? It's not happening to you. It's happening through you. The current heaviness isn't proof that you're failing, it's proof that your operating system is undergoing its final reboot. Everything inside of you is recalibrating, not breaking down. The fog isn't confusion, it's the residue of outdated frequencies burning off as your energy field expands into a level of receptivity you've never needed before, until now. That overdrive you've been stuck in? It was useful once, when resistance was everywhere and nothing moved unless you moved it. But what once kept you alive can't help you thrive. The old mechanisms were designed for struggle. Now, you're being asked to learn ease, not as luxury, but as necessity. The switch is more radical than it appears. Letting go of the grind doesn't mean the journey ends, it means the terrain has shifted. The echo of constant action may still ring in your bones, but the new path won't respond to effort in the same way. It bends for those who know when to pause, not just when to push. There's a built-in alarm system inside of you that's mistaking stillness for threat. It's not malfunctioning, it's just outdated. That internal siren was coded during seasons of survival where everything had to be earned with sweat or pain. But what's arriving now doesn't need force, it only needs readiness. This is what no one tells you, persistence becomes a prison when you forget to check if the door's already open. The hardest thing isn't the climb, it's believing the climb is over when everything in you is programmed to keep ascending. But arrival has no drum roll. Just silence, space, and a view you've never allowed yourself to enjoy. Rest has never been your enemy. Misinterpretation has. Recovery isn't stepping backward, it's the moment the flame refuels. Without it, even the brightest fire turns to smoke. You were never meant to run every circuit on an empty core. Stillness isn't surrender, it's stabilization. What once felt like purpose may now feel like obsession. But this isn't failure. It's an invitation. The loop has completed itself. Now, the work isn't about proving your worth. It's about remembering it, and receiving the life that recognizes it too. There's a threshold no one tells you about, where strength earned through struggle becomes the very anchor that allows grace to land. All the pushing, all the pressure, all the uphill climbs weren't wasted. They forged a frame sturdy enough to receive what doesn't need to be fought for. When force has done its job, it makes room for flow. Not because the journey is over, but because the path ahead responds only to trust. The repeating moments, the precise alignments, the strange timing of unexpected support, these weren't background noise. They were rehearsals for awareness. Patterns that seemed random were actually echoes of a greater blueprint adjusting its layers. The entire framework of what felt like chance has been folding in on itself, aligning timelines and decisions with the care of a master artisan working in silence. That silence itself wasn't emptiness, it was preparation. The inability to articulate what's been forming wasn't failure of clarity but protection of purity. Sometimes the most important truths stay locked until the space around them is safe enough to hold their full weight. Now the pressure that once held the message has shifted, and the atmosphere is finally ready to carry it forward. The nights that left the body humming and restless weren't just disturbances. They were tuning forks striking the nervous system at frequencies the waking mind couldn't grasp. The body became a satellite, absorbing what couldn't be taught in words. The fatigue, the mental haze, the disorientation, these were signatures of rapid internal acceleration disguised as depletion. This upcoming span of time isn't business as usual. It carries an imprint, a convergence that was timed not by human schedules but by unseen cycles interwoven long before memory began. It's not about clocks or calendars. It's about coded timing that's been awaiting a precise activation moment, and it's here, disguised as an ordinary sequence of days. And just like that, the signal is turning green. Not because you demanded it, but because you're finally tuned to hear its quiet approval. The shift isn't visible at first. It begins in the way your breath steadies without effort, and how the tension in your gut evaporates without explanation, and how certainty arrives without argument. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click super thank you and sow a gift of $40 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. Everything that was built through endurance has been recalibrated for expansion. What required push now answers to presence. And though the armor is still intact, it's no longer needed for protection, it's repurposed for visibility. Not as a shield, but as a testament. You were shaped for this moment. And now, you're not just ready for what's coming, it's been waiting for you. Expansion doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as momentum that's been building beneath the surface for years. Every late night spent refining your craft, every unseen hour devoted to the unseen parts of your dream, every choice that seemed invisible to the world, they've all been generating a power surge that's now reaching critical mass. What felt like stillness was acceleration preparing to burst. The qualities once dismissed as too much are about to be rebranded as the missing pieces everyone else was waiting for. The very characteristics that isolated you, the precision, the fire, the ability to walk into empty rooms and envision entire futures, will now become the credentials that usher in your visibility. What was once misunderstood will soon become the blueprint for the next wave. The spotlight you were never chasing is now moving toward you, not because you asked for it, but because you've become impossible to ignore. And when it hits, it won't just illuminate your presence, it'll expose how long you've been glowing in the dark. The silence that once felt like rejection will be reframed as the space required for something too large to be rushed. Momentum on the outside must be matched by integrity on the inside. You've reached a point where treating your body like an afterthought no longer works. The pace you're about to walk in requires a recalibration that begins with honoring the rhythms of the vessel you inhabit. Not out of indulgence, but out of alignment. Your body isn't a machine, it's a translator between your vision and reality. Everything that's been built in solitude is now ready to be shared. But not with just anyone. A resonance is coming, one that doesn't dim your light or ask you to fragment your essence. What's on the horizon isn't a compromise. It's an echo of your own completeness mirrored back through another form. A companionship designed to multiply the frequency, not divide the focus. This is the turning point where what once felt like separate tracks begin to interlace. Resources, connections, opportunities, they're being drawn to your orbit not by force, but by design. What you carried alone will now be supported by currents moving in sync with you. The effort you used to expend chasing outcomes is being replaced by a natural gravity pulling results toward you. And perhaps the most sacred shift is this: ease will no longer trigger guilt. Success will no longer demand exhaustion. You're not being rewarded, you're being aligned. What's showing up now isn't a prize for surviving the storm. It's a reflection of who you became because of it. This isn't the finish line. It's the unlocked version of everything that came before. Fuel has never just been about food, it's been about permission. For too long, nourishment has been treated like an afterthought, a box to tick rather than a dialogue with the body. But something has shifted. There's a quiet turning point approaching where desires realign with design. Suddenly, the pull won't be toward convenience, but toward vitality. Subtle cravings will emerge, not for fullness, but for function. What once seemed like appetite will begin to feel more like instruction from a wiser part of the self. A storm of brilliance has been waiting just outside the gates of exhaustion. And now, those gates are cracking open. What was once drowned beneath survival mode is rushing forward with new precision. Not random sparks, but full blueprints. Every idea previously set aside is resurfacing with structure. Not only will the inspiration return, it will come equipped with the clarity to shape it. A distortion in communication has finally run its course. Not every truth comes with noise. Some arrive in stillness, cutting through tension like thread through fabric. A distortion has been lingering beneath the surface of a connection you've held close. But the fog is lifting. And what emerges is less about betrayal and more about breathing freely again. The mask falls, but so does the weight. Where there once seemed to be an impasse, there is now movement. The block wasn't in the external world, it was the misalignment between potential and preparation. That threshold has been crossed. Conditions that once delayed creation are dissolving. Not because the laws of nature shifted, but because alignment did. New life doesn't need permission, it requires resonance. And that resonance has arrived. There are openings that don't happen twice in a lifetime. This moment is not routine. It carries weight that will ripple long after the surface comes. What comes next affects more than your personal fulfillment. It adjusts the entire ecosystem that grows around you. And that shift demands not more effort, but more openness. Being chosen has never been about earning. It's been about recognizing the signal when it appears and stepping through before it vanishes. Fatigue isn't failure. The depletion felt in recent days is not from weakness, it's from recalibration. Systems are reorienting themselves. Sleep no longer refreshes because what's occurring isn't rest, it's reconstruction. Muscles may feel heavy, thoughts scattered, emotions volatile. But that isn't collapse, it's transformation. The parts of you that couldn't hold higher capacity are being redesigned in silence. This period doesn't just ask for patience, it demands presence. Not the kind that stares at clocks or chases answers, but the kind that listens without urgency. Every internal shift, every craving for stillness, every tear shed without cause is part of a migration from who you've been to who you're becoming. This isn't repair. It's activation. And it's already begun. Strength has often worn the mask of solitude, choosing silence over requests, and self-sufficiency over support. But the next unfolding doesn't require proof of resilience. It calls for capacity to receive. Time to perfection, the right individuals are already orbiting your path, those who carry missing pieces to your evolving structure. Their arrival won't be forced. It will feel inevitable, like something you accidentally forgot to expect but deeply needed all along. There's a shift underway that doesn't just affirm you, it redefines the rules for everyone watching. What's about to happen through your life isn't a victory lap for one person. It's a crack in the wall of limitation that generations have accepted as law. What manifests now doesn't only elevate you, it rewrites what others believed was possible for themselves. Self-talk that once felt like protection is now becoming an echo from an outdated room you've already moved out of. The hyper-awareness, the critique on loop, the obsession with imperfection, they're losing their grip. In their place, something softer and far more powerful is emerging, awareness without judgment. You're finally seeing not just what went wrong, but how much went right, without needing to fix anything to earn that view. A new identity is being offered, not one earned through opposition, but one claimed through ownership. The battles that trained your spirit also taught your system to anticipate more conflict. But there's nothing left to fight for. Now, the lesson is sovereignty, choosing presence over proving, rulership over reaction. And that choice opens gates effort could never reach. What used to require friction now responds only to alignment. Influence flows from being attuned, not being aggressive. The energy moving through you isn't telling you to slow down, it's asking you to vibrate differently. That softening isn't collapse, it's cohesion. You're not losing edge, you're gaining gravity. Situations that used to rattle your balance are beginning to lose their weight. You've outgrown the need to take every tension seriously. The sense of urgency, the chase for validation, the pressure to get it perfect, these are being replaced with something unexpected, levity. The same script that once drained you now reads like satire. And in that shift, power is reborn through perspective. Your concept of wealth is undergoing redefinition, not in number, but in nature. What once felt scarce is now revealed as cyclical. The energy you called money was never meant to be chased, it was meant to be danced with. As your frequency adjusts, transactions become translations of trust. And where fear once governed the flow, ease now takes its place. What's spent will return multiplied, not through calculation, but through coherence. The way provision arrives is about to rewrite everything you've come to expect. Access points you never noticed are unlocking all at once, revealing hidden corridors of supply, opportunity, and support that bypass traditional logic. What was once a trickle now demands capacity. Influence will acknowledge you without invitation. Doors once rusted shut are swinging open on their own. Yet the most groundbreaking shift won't be external, it'll be internal. A version of you is surfacing that no longer trades value for exhaustion. Receiving will no longer feel like a luxury. It will feel like alignment. Daily structure is being rearranged from the ground up. The habits that once defined productivity are being dismantled in favor of rhythm over rigidity. Long-haul hustle is being replaced with focused surges of insight. Effort is being distilled down to intention. You'll watch what used to drain entire days collapse into moments of effortless motion. Movement aligned with inner clarity now does more than schedules filled with clutter. Messages from beyond the veil are breaking through with unmistakable clarity. Not as subtle signs, but as bold synchronizations that arrive with timing so uncanny they disrupt disbelief. Patterns repeat with surgical precision. Symbols emerge in unlikely places. Sound and color start speaking languages your spirit remembers. These experiences aren't anomalies, they're activations. Coordinated reminders that you are not walking blind. Surroundings are shifting. The social architecture of your life is reconfiguring itself with divine intelligence. Bonds that once felt essential begin to fade without conflict. Connections with no resonance dissolve. In their place, new presences arrive, reflecting, not draining. The shedding isn't rejection, It's the clearing of emotional static so you can hear your true resonance in clean air. Creative blueprints that lived quietly in the corners of your mind are being pulled center stage. Not through force, but through clarity. The time gap between idea and execution is shrinking rapidly. Projects once labeled someday are emerging with everything they need: timing, resources, audience, and clarity. The idea hasn't changed, but the version of you delivering it has evolved. Physiology is echoing the evolution. What felt like inexplicable fatigue, strange pulses, or shifting emotional landscapes was never illness. It was transition. Systems are being updated to carry more frequency without collapse. Old responses to stress are being overwritten. The body is syncing with a new pace, a new language. It's not just recovery, it's redefinition. You're being equipped to hold power without fragmentation. What once felt like a climb is now becoming a platform. The ground beneath you is stabilizing, not because things have slowed, but because your roots have deepened. The coming days won't just prove your readiness, they'll initiate your release from outdated roles. And as you rise, the world will finally begin to respond to the energy you've been broadcasting in silence all along. The spaces you've tolerated out of practicality are no longer equipped to hold the version of you that's emerging. Comfort is no longer enough. You're being pulled toward a habitat that reflects your expansion, not just shelters your body. What's forming isn't just a place to live, it's a cradle for innovation, a chamber for recalibration, a sanctuary calibrated to your next evolution. That space exists not just to house you, but to enhance you. Hidden efficiencies are about to reveal themselves, not by accident, but by design. You're being handed insights into how your system uniquely operates. Tools that never worked for others suddenly unlock entire workflows for you. Methods long dismissed become key elements in your structure. You're no longer following templates, you're discovering your formula. What once felt unconventional now proves to be custom-coded to your soul's architecture. Not every departure requires conflict. Some exits are orchestrated by unseen wisdom. When resonance fades, people often drift or disconnect, not out of malice but because your new frequency no longer mirrors theirs. The ache of separation is temporary. What comes next brings reflections, not projections. This silence you're sitting in? It's the clean slate that precedes deeper harmony. The pressure to catch up, to rush through seasons, to outpace your own timing, it's collapsing. You're beginning to understand time as something you co-author, not chase. Delay no longer feels like punishment, it feels like preparation. The next arrival won't come early or late, it will come synchronized. What's woven into your destiny can't be missed. It can only be received when the rhythm aligns. What's assembling now goes far beyond material comfort. This is abundance that speaks multiple languages, peace that shows up in the body, clarity that lands in your thoughts, love that enters without warning. All facets are converging. Not in chaos, but in a dance that's been choreographed by something far older than the mind. This isn't accumulation. It's integration. Support isn't coming in the form of assistance alone. It's arriving through alignment. The individuals showing up are more than collaborators, they are fulfillments of agreements made beyond memory. Their presence won't just help you execute a plan, it will remind you of who you are. These aren't temporary transactions. They're sacred exchanges that reflect mutual recognition and shared purpose. Rest is becoming strategy, not surrender. The rhythm ahead doesn't respond to brute force, it listens to calibrated frequency. What feels like stillness is actually a higher form of motion. This isn't withdrawal, it's activation. Pushing is being replaced by presence. Noise is giving way to knowing. You're not waiting, you're allowing. And what's forming on the horizon doesn't require exhaustion. It requires embodiment. Alignment has a way of announcing itself without words. As your inner world reconfigures, your outer reality bends to meet it. Certain energies will stop orbiting. Some people will either evolve or exit. Circumstances that once stirred confusion begin to dissolve without resistance. And what used to look like a barrier now looks like a reflection, distorted only by outdated perspective. This isn't coincidence. It's proof that clarity rearranges reality. The path that brought you here wasn't a series of missteps, it was a sculpting process. Every fragment that cracked, every detour that delayed, was carving a wider space for what's now en route. The parts that once felt like collapse were hidden thresholds. Moments you labeled as endings were simply chambers where capacity stretched quietly in the dark. And now, that space is echoing with arrival. What looked like a solo climb is revealing itself as part of a larger mosaic. You weren't the only one building. Others have been constructing parallel visions, pieces that connect with yours in ways you never expected. The orchestration behind the scenes is staggering. Individuals who once felt irrelevant are re-entering as essential. This isn't coincidence, it's choreography. Now begins the phase few are truly ready for, receiving. What once felt like wishful thinking is materializing as experience. The one day is becoming today. And the feeling that once resembled waiting is now unmistakably arrival. There's no spotlight announcing it. There's just an undeniable sense that the season of striving has given way to the rhythm of reward. Holding on to tools from old battles will only weigh you down now. The armor that kept you protected becomes unnecessary in environments designed for safety, not survival. The inner commander who pushed through storm after storm must now step aside for the inner curator, one who selects what to build, not what to escape. Power is no longer proven. It's embodied. What's shifting isn't surface level, it's structural. The exhaustion that left you questioning everything was never weakness. It was the final layer peeling away. You've reached the point where your spirit doesn't need to prove readiness, it radiates it. The tension wasn't failure. It was contraction before expansion. The ache wasn't defeat. It was birth pains for something holy. You're entering a timeline that moves with you, not against you. The vision that once required constant tending now begins to bloom on its own. This isn't because you worked harder. It's because you became the person who could hold it. The celebration isn't being thrown in your honor, it's being activated through your presence. This isn't the end of the journey. It's your return to the world as the version of yourself that was always waiting beneath the weight. Welcome to the other side.